Are the 49ers gearing up for some post-draft move? Created a little cap space, more additions after the draft coming for the San Francisco 49ers, and Wink and the Stink coming up on this edition of Locked On 49ers.
You are Locked On 49ers, your daily San Francisco 49ers podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome to Locked On 49ers. Brian Peacock and Eric Crocker here with you as usual at BD Peacock at Eric_Crocker. Thanks everybody for making us your first listen on the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. And our weekly special guest on this Winky Wednesday episode, my former radio colleague, my former podcast co-host doing the Gold Faithful podcast, the precursor to this very podcast, and former sports anchor and just all around good dude and Bay Area sports fan, the voice of the fan, Mr. Nick Winkler.
Nicholas Winkler, come on down.
Wink, I love it. Representing San Francisco Giants baseball along with 49ers football and, of course, Golden State Warriors basketball. We got a rep as of this recording, by the way. You can see what Croc is wearing over there. Yellow and purple, one of the worst color combinations in history, hurting my eyes right now. So I gotta look at a different part of my screen. Warriors-Lakers, big series getting going. Game one will be done by the time you're listening to this podcast. We're going to have this episode live after the basketball game tonight on YouTube and first thing in the morning, Winky Wednesday style. But we're not talking basketball. We're talking football. We're talking NFL draft. We're talking post-draft as well. But Wink, Croc and I have covered this draft in a lot of different angles, more angles to come as well. And we're doing deep dives on every player in the draft. But your initial thoughts on the 49ers draft class haul from 2023?
It's to the point now where I'm having to explain the 49ers draft it started with just friends, right? Like other 49er fans are like, make this make sense, blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, all right, calm down. Okay. Yeah. They probably reached a little bit here. They reached in this because they needed this and they thought this guy wouldn't be around in this, that. And now I'm having to answer like random fans, right? Like other buddies that I haven't heard from in years that are just like, dude, what's going on? What are the 49ers doing? Like my buddy Levi today reached out to me with just like, not 49ers, WTH. And I'm just like, all right, buddy, like, let me break this down for you. Okay. They saw some areas of need and they reached a little bit. They didn't have any early draft picks. Of course, their overall draft's not going to look good. They didn't have a first. They didn't have a second. They didn't have a fourth. Like it was rough to sit there and watch this happen. And then you watch and you're like, that guy? You're gonna draft that? You're gonna draft a kicker? And then oh god, as soon as the kicker went off, you want me to get into the stink right now? Because
can't believe it.
Oh god, my phone blew up.
Is on.
I mean, it was nonsense. Just like laughter, just like laughing emojis, like over and over. My phone starts ringing. People are like, kicker, huh? Oh yeah, you guys did that, and it's just like it's hard to sit there and defend it.
I love the kicker pick for no other reason than some of the screenshots that our listeners saved from our live stream. And because I broke the news to Crocker about the pick because he didn't have it up on his screen yet. And I told him about the kicker pick, and he thought I was joking with him that the Niners took the kicker in the third round. And the look on his face, and I love the screenshots that we got from some of the fans, and it was pretty wild. Like it was fun. It was something we joked about. It was like it's like the third round running back thing. Oh, they're going to take another running back again. Said it last year, and they did. And you're like, of course they did. And I told listeners, like, don't be surprised about that third round kicker. I didn't really expect it. It's like, don't be surprised. It's probably what's going to happen going by history, you know. And lo and behold, they did. So I guess Croc, we shouldn't be that surprised by the third round kicker after all.
I guess we shouldn't. And again, once things start settling in and you kind of get a chance to really look over everything and the shock of it goes away, and the shock of maybe them not taking the guy that you want goes away. You start to just kind of understand it for what it is. And 49 needed a kicker. You don't have Robbie Gould anymore. And they said, hey, we're going to go and get the best available guy that we think is out there. And it happens to be in the third round.
Yep. Force and need I don't love. And we've talked about the kicker pick and why we don't like it. And we have to just kind of wait. You know, obviously, we know the draft grades are too early right now. We'll find out in a couple of years what all these prospects look like. Did you have, I'm guessing kicker was your least favorite pick. Wink, did you have a favorite pick from the 49ers draft class, or maybe some of the undrafted free agents we're seeing coming through?
Yeah, I mean, I sat, around. I'm like, okay, they're going to address the needs on the offensive line in the draft. Here we go. No, not even a single one. Okay, all right. So I like that they're kind of stockpiling, some undrafted free agents now on the offensive line. That's good to see. I mean, it's hard. Like D Winters, I think might be my favorite draft pick by the 49ers, just because he's got that kind of go get it mentality that I love in a middle linebacker. You know me, I'm a big middle linebacker guy. Fullbacks and middle linebackers, those are my guys. So I like that. He's undersized, so you kind of root for him too. He's kind of got that, Rudy thing going, like, oh, he's undersized. He's gonna make the tackles, but then he's still not a prototypical guy, right? So it's like Beal maybe might be my favorite. It's just you said it. We're a couple of years away from actually fully understanding what this draft class is going to look like. So it's hard to get excited for two tight ends that are just whatever, and it's like a little bit slow. It's like,
I do like some of the mentalities that the 49ers brought in. And of course, if we talked about the kicker pick, and it's like, yeah, historically it's not going to be a good situation. But if we're believing history, then one of those 2 5th-round picks, whether it's Beal coming off the edge or Darrell Luter, one of them's going to hit for the 49ers, right? Because they're magical in the 5th round. And if you're looking at the class, you're kind of looking at it as like, okay, these guys do have the profile to be the ones that like, okay, outplay their draft position, maybe more than some of the other draft picks.
Yeah, I think with Beal too, I think it'll be good for him if he gets to play opposite Nick Bosa. Obviously, like that to me would be solid for him. Or maybe he spells Nick Bosa, and I don't know. You trust the process, right? But then also they miss a lot, right? So we looked at all the late, a couple weeks ago we were talking about, oh, the 49ers have this grade, of late round draft picks, like which rounds are they the best in, right? And overall they were very high when it came to the later round draft picks. So you look at a lot of these guys, you're like, okay, maybe Ronnie Bell is going to turn into something, right? Maybe they see something in this guy that fits the scheme, but it's like, what are you going to do with Danny Gray? Like, I don't know.
Hey, Croc, I want to ask you this because the 49ers, it just dawned on me earlier this morning. I was thinking about the draft class and looking at past 49ers drafts, and I don't have it up on the screen. I was just trying to go from memory, and maybe you guys can help me out here. Has the second player, when the 49ers doubled up on the same position in a draft class, has the second guy at that position been better every single time?
Not Debo
running
and
back,
Jalen
right?
Hurd.
Oh, there you go.
Debo and Hurd. Okay, there we go. There's one. Was that?
Well, who did they take? Another guy with Ayuk was
Ayuk and Juwan Jennings.
Oh, Jennings was the draft too. Okay, good. Okay,
yeah.
So it's wide receiver. The first one is better. Offensive line, I'm trying to think. It was Jalen Moore was the same draft as McKivitz?
I think so.
And McKivitz was second, right?
Okay. Trey Sermon and
yeah, that was the big one. That it was Sermon and
Elijah Mitchell.
And Elijah Mitchell.
6th-rounder,
Elijah Mitchell's on the team still.
Right.
Looking at undrafted guys last year, JP Mason had it on the depth chart of Ty Davis Price, I would imagine. So it's also pretty telling that, especially when you get in the later rounds of the draft, that these guys are really close together. But don't be shocked if Braden Willis ends up being, as competitive or maybe even over Latu on the roster, because it's happened enough to where it's kind of the futility of the draft too. It's like, man, you just really don't know, and you give your grades immediately. This is what we think, but some players surprise you. Some players you love the pick, they surprise you in the wrong way. You just really don't know until these guys get on the field, and that playing field gets kind of leveled. And you mentioned D Winters, and I was talking about this on Twitter with some fans that were talking about, like, man, just like so much personal connection means so much. And you go through all this process, you're looking at players on the field, who's the best player. And then D Winters grew up in the same area as Johnny Holland, 49ers linebackers coach. And so they hit it off. And like, I like this guy the best. He grew up near my hometown. It's like, what? Right. We're going to reduce it to that. The first time ever in the history of the NFL draft, a GM had a class with a prospect, and the 49ers draft Solomon Thomas, and with the very first pick that they make in the new regime, you go through all this, and it's like, I don't know. Who do I know the best? Let's draft that guy.
That did work out so well.
There was another one actually today, which got me thinking on that subject, was when the Houston Texans drafted CJ Stroud, Stroud made really close friends with Tank Dell, wide receiver in this draft class, through combine and working out and stuff. And he's asked the front office to draft him. So they drafted him later on. It's like wild. You go through this entire process all the time. And it's just like, who do you know? Who do you like? And John Lynch talked about it with Jair Brown. They brought him in and they're like, everyone liked him. So we drafted him. He was our guy. I'm sure they had he didn't go from undrafted to that, but that was he had a good draft grade, and they're like, this is our favorite guy. Let's go get our favorite guy. The 49ers didn't even have Joe Williams on their draft board in 2017. Kyle Shanahan comes in and says, I'm not going to be able to sleep if we don't get this guy. He went from not on the board at all till, we're going to go get this guy right now. It's pretty wild.
The one thing I will say is it feels like they've learned from a lot of their lessons. And they're not a front office that just keeps kind of banging their head on the wall or trying to fit a square peg into a round hole. When something doesn't work, they're like, okay, this did not work, and we need to reevaluate the way we go about this process. And it feels like they've done a good job of doing that.
Yeah, I agree.
All right, guys, next I want to talk about what the 49ers could be up to post-draft here as we reach the preparing for OTAs, camp, reevaluating the roster post-draft next. Today's episode of Locked On 49ers is brought to you by FanDuel Sportsbook. Make a fast break to FanDuel during the NBA playoffs because right now new customers can get a no-sweat first bet up to $1,000. That's $1,000 back in bonus bets if your first bet doesn't win. And there's no place to bet the playoffs with more action than America's #1 sportsbook in FanDuel. And by the way, NHL playoffs as well, not just NBA playoffs, big Warriors and Lakers series. Warriors favored by 5. Of course, when you're listening to this podcast, game 1 will be in the books. And I can't wait for this series. It's gonna probably destroy the West Coast even more than that Sacramento Warriors series was. Did the Warriors have any gas left in the tank after that 50-point game 7 from Steph Curry, going 7 with the Sacramento Kings? A little more rest for the Lakers to get ready for this one. I can't wait for it. It's going to be a lot of fun. Croc is going to be insufferable with his Lakers propaganda. Visit FanDuel.com/lockedon to get a no sweat first bet up to $1,000. That's FanDuel.com/lockedon. FanDuel, official sports betting partner of the NBA. It's a fun series. It's going to be a fun basketball series. Playoff. It's like, is this like, Croc, is this like 49ers Cowboys?
Yeah, I think the fans make the rivalry. I don't even think it's actually on the court. So when it comes to the Dallas Cowboys, they did some things in the 90s and that made it like a big deal. Then I think, the 49ers and Seattle rivalry, when Richard Sherman said, Michael Crabtree, don't try me with a sorry receiver like Crabtree, it kind of made it personal with the fans. The fans I don't like that guy. And then the 49er fans and the Seahawks fans just kind of go after it. And I think with the Lakers and Warriors, I think because it's very close, there's a lot of Laker fans in the Bay Area and surrounding areas, Stockton, California. And, when you have a lot of Laker fans and the Warrior fans, and then you guys have a common rooting interest in the Lakers, in the 49ers, excuse me, but outside of that, it's like, wow, how can we be so polar opposite on these two teams? And then obviously you have me that likes to have fun on social media with everyone. And now it's kind of turned into a real big rivalry. I don't even know if there's a rivalry between Lakers and Warriors, but there definitely is one between the Warrior fans and Eric Crocker. That's clear.
Because of Crocker's cultivating that too and enjoying it. And I've been having fun and enjoying watching that one as well, and having fun with you a little bit on the podcast. The Sacramento Warriors series was interesting too, because almost 100% of Warriors and Kings fans are 49ers fans. It's overwhelming. So to see that split and then come back after, and I wonder if Sacramento Kings fans are kind of salty about the Warriors right now, going to be rooting more for the Lakers, or if they feel more of a connection because of the Bay Area. And Sacramento and Bay Area is kind of more together than they are apart in a lot of ways. And I wonder if they're going to be rooting for the Warriors, or they just are like, you know what? I hope they both lose. That's probably what most Kings fans are feeling right now.
That's when you start rooting for whoever is coming out the East.
Yeah. Right. Exactly.
You're like, oh, go Denver Nuggets. Here we go.
That's funny. So if there are any 49ers Kings fans, let us know in the YouTube comments or on Twitter who you're rooting for, Warriors or Lakers in this series. But clearly, Wink, it's going to be tough for the Lakers because the Warriors have the best player on either team, right?
That's true. He's not old, right? He's 35, but at the top of his game right now, Steph Curry.
He's a youthful 35.
Wait, did I just go Dylan Brooks on LeBron? Did I just call him old? Uh-oh.
You did. You see what they said about Dylan Brooks today?
Yeah, that's crazy.
Yeah, they're like, we're not bringing him back under any circumstances. But here's the thing and this is not a Warrior podcast or a Laker podcast, but watching those games, there is a lot on the shoulders of Steph Curry. Mm-hmm. And luckily, last game, Looney showed up and did an awesome job on the offensive boards. I mean, I think what he had, like 12 offensive rebounds, and they really needed every one of those for them to be able to pull back. I mean, they had just 12 offensive rebounds in the third quarter alone. That's a lot of second chance opportunities. So, but everybody else's supporting cast, I mean, Clay was very hit and miss. He was terrible first half.
Mostly miss.
And then second
free
half,
throw shooting, horrible.
He was hit and miss free throws. I mean,
everybody.
Jordan Poole hasn't been great.
No.
If those players are playing like that against the Lakers, it's going to be very, very tough. Like, you need those guys to be on because the Lakers do play good defense.
Yeah. They definitely have to be more on. You can't lean on Steph getting 50 in every game. That's
how the Lakers have played. They haven't leaned on one guy. Like Anthony Davis, he's going to do his thing. Just hope he don't get hurt. And LeBron, he's going to pitch in. But it's kind of been in all 4 wins last series, the leading scorer was a different person. Every one of those wins. And like that just shows you kind of the depth of the Lakers and how well they're playing as a team and defensively and how well they did at the trade deadline. I mean, they do a lot of really good things. So if Clay is on and Poole is on and Steph is on, then that's tough. But if those guys continue to play how they have been playing, where very hit and miss or just off, then it'd be a lot tougher.
Yeah, to get back to the rivalry thing real quick, I don't think it's so much a Warriors-Lakers rivalry as it's a Warriors-LeBron rivalry, right?
Yeah.
All his time in Cleveland.
Yeah.
I think Warriors fans have been annoyed by the Lakers no matter what generation, just because of the coverage the Lakers get and because of how some of their fans like Eric Crocker treat it like they're some majestic special franchise that's above everybody. No, I'm just kidding.
Yeah, I was going to say 17 rings. Like, what are you talking about?
Last one was the Mickey Mouse ring, though.
We'll take it.
It's like
I know, right?
It's kind of like that. That's why it's like the Cowboys thing. They're like America's team, and you're like, F off with that.
Yeah, that's more. It's like they haven't won. Nah, that's different.
Yeah, that's very different.
They were the team of the '90s for sure.
Sure,
but
that was a long time ago.
All right, guys, we got to get off the basketball stuff. Get back into. I can already picture the comments. This is not a basketball podcast.
Well, they probably like the Warriors and Lakers, so they'll be fine.
That's true.
It's a fun Bay Area rivalry this week. It's worth talking about for a couple minutes there. Here's what's interesting though with a tie-in. If we want to go the Steph Curry tie-in, like Steph Curry from a leadership standpoint, so important obviously to the Warriors. 49ers lost a lot of players this offseason. Is going and getting high character leadery types. Was that an underrated aspect of the 49ers draft this year to replace Emmanuel Mosley and Jimmy Ward? Like, those were guys that have been around, especially Jimmy Ward. He was the longest tenured 49er, a leader on that side of the ball, going and getting someone with the high end leadership of Tig Brown to replace him, basically in the secondary. All the guys the 49ers drafted, high character, wired in a certain way. Maybe that was something the 49ers went in and said, we need the most leadery draft class that we can find.
I think that's a good call. I think you need to replace guys like that. Plus, I think they know what's going to happen after this season, right? Like with Brown, where it's like, okay, he might not get a whole lot of playing time this year, but do we plug him into safety, starting next year? Were they already looking a year ahead with some of their draft picks?
Yeah.
I think you try to figure out if he can be that guy, right? Like, you drafted him, and again, it wasn't the Tracy type pick. And if you take a safety first round, I mean, we're talking about somebody that runs in the 4.4s, 6'2", 210 pounds, can move very well, right? Like, it's just a different caliber of prospect. But they've done so well with the Jair Brown type of prospects where it's like, hey, let's just see, because we don't want to have to spend the first round pick on a safety. So can we get enough signs throughout the year that eventually this is a guy that can take over for Tayshaun Gibson? And drafting him with a dang near a comp pick, I know you traded up a little bit, but that's the time to try to figure that out. High character, probably terrific work ethic. Just looking at how he came up through junior college and 2-year player at Penn State, led college football in interceptions over those 2 years combined. Team captain, all those things. It's like, hey, this is our type of guy. So can we hit on this type of guy and do well in this third round, so we don't have to go and draft a safety so high, and we can focus more on the edge or offensive tackle at that point.
Yeah, similarly with the tight end thing, it's like, okay, let's get some tight ends here. This is a good draft to do it. It's a deep class. Take a couple swings. We don't have to spend a top 50 pick on a tight end anytime soon, or hopefully ever.
I think it was Bleacher Report. They put out a mock draft, and it was like, wow, 49ers have a first round pick. Like, it was so weird. It feels like it's been forever, because even going back to the Trey Lance pick, it was like, well, okay, it's going to be a quarterback. Like, there was no mystery behind it. So now it's like, man, it's been 2 years where 49ers aren't even thought of picking in the first round. And this year, you have a first round pick, second round pick, original third round pick. So now it's kind of like, I'm excited to look at mocks now.
Yeah, nice.
Dude, speaking of those future picks, this is a perfect tie-in, because are the 49ers up to something? They cleared some cap space. Are they up to something with the potential trade, which would now need probably those future picks to be involved? Or maybe a big signing coming up, some names that might be of interest to the San Francisco 49ers next. Thanks, everybody, for making Locked On 49ers your first listen every day here on the Locked On Podcast Network. Shout out to the Everydayers. Tomorrow, Croc and I back. We're doing deep dives on all the 49ers draft prospects. Ronnie Bell of Michigan is on the docket, as well as Darrell Luter, cornerback out of South Alabama, the next two up, and we'll be hitting all of the San Francisco 49ers draft picks in depth and looking at this team from every angle, all offseason and on season long on Locked On 49ers. Croc, Wink. The 49ers, I thought they were up to something during the draft. There might be a big trade, because they could have restructured Christian McCaffrey's contract at any time. And they kind of did it draft weekend, which is interesting. They picked up the fifth-year option of Brandon Ayuk, didn't trade Ayuk, didn't trade Trey Lance. So probably those two guys, big winners as far as the 49ers go. Marcelino McCrary-Ball, maybe a big loser just because more competition. Demetrius Flanagan-Foles, those linebackers could be a big competition, after Fred Warner and Dre Greenlaw at the linebacker position. But I think an underrated aspect of this is the 49ers didn't attack offensive line, didn't attack until the fifth round, the edge position, which depth-wise is a little lighter right now, although they have enough numbers, but I don't think it's a finished position quite yet, unless Drake Jackson, they expect him just to be the dude, and they really like Beal, and they're going to be okay there and have some bigger, flexible inside out guys as well to rotate through on the edge. But they lost a bunch of edge rushers in free agency. So are they going to sign somebody? Yannick Ngakoue is a big name that's been out there in recent days. The 49ers cleared some space. Why did they clear that space? And is there a trade out there that the 49ers might swing? Wink, do you think there's room for the 49ers to might do something big? Maybe trade away one of those first or second round picks in next year's class. And maybe they're going to go get some tackle that's on the market we didn't know about, or some other edge player.
I think that as a 49er fan, you're sitting here and you hear what you just said, and you think, okay, if they're going to trade away another draft pick, because we all heard how excited Crocker was, because we're all excited to get back into that first round, right? So if they're going to trade away another future first round draft pick, it better be for a starter. It better be for a guy who's going to come in and be like, look, we got our right tackle here. Here we go. Like, don't worry about those draft picks again, guys. I know we haven't had one in a while, but look, we got our guy. So if they do make a move, you hope it's for an impact starter immediately.
I don't know if you can do it, man. I start to look at the Rams and where they're at, and for a while, it's like, okay, I can go through this for a couple of years. But I don't think that's a strategy you want to do year after year after year after year. And it has really caught up to the Rams to where now, kind of what they do, they got an aging quarterback whose elbow is falling off or whatever's going on with him. And what are they going to do at the quarterback position? You got Jalen Ramsey. Is like, dang, we had him. It was good. Did win a Super Bowl, but then, dang, now we got to move him away. So, I mean, I guess out of all of that, they did get the Super Bowl victory. But, man, the roster around it, it feels like it's very depleted. It's like, who do they have next to Aaron Donald? Because for a while, it was like, man, they got Aaron Donald. They got Von Miller. They got OBJ. They got Cooper Kupp. They got, Matthew Stafford. They got all these guys. They're loaded. And now it feels like it's all kind of falling apart, and they don't have any legit young talent to really help kind of soften that blow.
So here's a question on that. Which is worse, though? Which is worse? So trading away your first-round draft picks, right, for a veteran or somebody who can come in and play right away, or drafting a guy that you miss on, right? Because then now you're invested how much money in this prospect. You just look at Javon Kinlaw, for instance. You got a guy, you didn't pick up his fifth-year option. He's been a bust, right? Or you miss on a quarterback early, like the Trey Lance.
Nick Winkler said that. That was Nicholas Winkler. He lives in the Bay Area. That was not Eric Crocker, but go ahead.
Don't hate on Crocker, everybody. This is it's true, right? You look at
a
franchise.
About is Javon Kinlaw coming on our show? telling
I didn't choose not to pick up his fifth-year option, right? I mean, and the guy's just been hurt all the time. I'm just spitting facts here, Croc. That's all. But I understand, and now you got me scared. I'm retracting everything I just said about Kinlaw. No. You miss on a guy, and it hurts your franchise for many years, right? So is it better to trade that pick away for a guy who is going to come in and play for you?
I think it's important to have good, young, cost-controlled players that you're building through if you want long-term success. You're going to miss on some draft picks, but that's why you want more draft picks than fewer draft picks. And so if you back yourself into a corner where you don't have a first-round pick for 3 years, you don't have for 2 years, you don't have a second-round pick, and even if you have good players to show for it, you still need the young, cost-controlled players at positions that are hard to get, or you're going to be chasing your own tail, and you have to spend more resources, more draft picks, more free agent dollars, and then you're gonna eventually stop replenishing the young talent on your football team unless you're just amazing in the late rounds, and the 49ers have done that. Like, if that well dries up for the 49ers and they don't have early picks to find difference-making players, and they don't hit on some of these later round picks and find starters, then you're going to really feel that in 2 to 3 years. You don't feel missing a 2022 first round pick in 2022. You feel that in 2024, and that's really where it starts to hit, and it bogs down the resources of your team.
I think what you ultimately end up missing is just the high level guys and being able to have those guys, because the 49ers have done a good job of just having guys in the mid rounds that can be legitimate starters, or we can get by with them, right? Like, think about Diamador Lenore. A lot of people want to replace Diamador Lenore. They'd say that cornerback is a need. They need somebody to play opposite Travarius Ward. But I would say, hey, Diamador Lenore has done a good job, but that's the type of guys that you typically get in the mid rounds, and they've done a good job of that. Just finding guys he can contribute, he can play, he can start games for us, probably can even start an entire year for us. But you're kind of missing that star power that you get typically in the first round. And you swung for a quarterback. We'll see how it plays out, but you don't want to keep missing out on not having those type of talented players.
Right.
If it's not a trade and it's a free agent, let's just look at a couple free agent names here. Tom Brady still out there. I think we can put the quarterback thing to bed now. We know what the quarterback group is going to look like for the 49ers, unless there's still something that happens quarterback-wise, trading Trey Lance. It doesn't seem like it's going to happen. And to be honest with you, I hope it doesn't happen. I want to see Trey get that shot, and I can't wait to see what he looks like in camp and in preseason before Brock Purdy comes back. I would have said if they didn't draft a kicker, Robbie Gould's still out there. Mason Crosby's still out there. Older kickers, but old kickers are usually pretty good kickers. If you became an old kicker, it's because you were probably a pretty good kicker. Yannick Ngakoue is the big name that's been thrown around the most. What do you guys think? Yannick Ngakoue signed right now, 49ers, get a little speed off the edge.
Yes.
Yeah.
I mean, just do it, right?
It's done.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, at what point do you have? I mean, I guess it's almost like coverage guys. You can never have too many.
Right.
So they definitely have a lot of edge guys, and we talk about Bill and the potential upside of him, right? But it's all right. We got Drake Jackson. We'll see. You got Farrell, Cleveland Farrell. You got him, and all these. You got the Bryant guy from the Detroit Lions, and then it's okay. We got the Bill Jr. and you have all these different guys that you've been throwing resources at. Do you just say, forget all y'all? And still, Samson Ebicam too, right? Or did he walk?
No,
he walked.
He's gone.
Okay, he gone. Him and Aminu. My bad.
And it's funny because all those guys are on 1-year contracts, but if you sign Yannick Ngakoue, it's probably going to be a 1-year contract. Jadeveon Clowney's still out there. If we're just looking at edge names, Justin Houston's still out there. I think you can wait. Frank Clark's still available as well. Hasn't been signed by anybody. Robert
I like
Quinn.
Frank Clark.
I
I
mean,
don't know if
there's
he
a
fits
ton
the
of them.
49ers culture, but
Culture could be one. You know,
Mhm.
dollars is one, but they cleared some cap space. Was it to make a move at edge? I don't know. Why would they go sign Farrell and Bryant if they were just going to go bring in Yannick Ngakoue? That doesn't make much sense to me unless they expected the draft to go differently. Maybe they had some guys in the third round area that they thought were going to be there that weren't there for them. Maybe that's part of it.
or they hate Drake Jackson. Like that would be the only. Like if you just don't
Yes.
think that, and how
Right.
could you think that, right? I mean, it's a guy didn't finish the year strong, but it's like, man, come on, man. He's a rookie. You invested a decent amount. He's a talented guy. This point at this time last year, people were saying that might be the steal of the draft, right? So
Yep.
he played a year. Now he has the opportunity to really try to start to figure it out, especially this offseason. But I don't think you just know exactly what he is right now. The tough thing with the 49ers is it doesn't feel like they give up on players pretty fast.
They kind of do. Yeah.
Yes and no.
They see it and make a decision. They're a decisive organization for the most part, right?
I feel like right away it's like I mean, think about all the guys that they just going into year two. It's just like, nope,
nope,
you
that
can't
wasn't
cut
it. Yep, that wasn't it. Didn't work. Yeah,
Cut your
I think-
losses,
Again,
right?
what happened with him? Remember, Adrian Colbert was like good for a year,
yeah.
or for he finished the season really strong. That Jimmy Garoppolo first year that Jimmy was there.
Mhm.
I mean, they were undefeated with him at quarterback too. Remember, they were undefeated with Jimmy G. They were undefeated with him at safety. I mean,
Yeah, that's the
including
safety
the
net.
one game he started the game against the Giants, but that broke his finger. So he started that game, played the 49ers won. He missed the next game, which they lost to the Seahawks, but then Jimmy G came in at the end. And then the next 5 games he started. And so he's 6 starts as a rookie. They won the game. He was making plays, forcing fumbles, doing all these things. And then you're not good enough to play for us. And it's just gone. It's like, what the heck happened?
If I had to guess, I
Cost too
think
much.
creating a little cap space was just to give himself a little breathing room, some operating room. You know, they got to sign their draft picks. I think they had enough to do that. It's not an expensive draft class to sign. And then go into OTAs, see how players look. Maybe start with camp. If there's some injuries, they could have enough space to go make a move for a veteran player. I mentioned all those defensive ends that could be out there. If they don't like what they see from Drake Jackson or some of the one-year guys they brought in during camp, or there's injuries, they could do that. They could wait on offensive linemen. If they don't like what they see from McKivitz or there's an injury there, you know, there's Lawan still out there. And, you know, some of these older players might be retiring, but George Fant and Donovan Smith and Eric Fisher and Isaiah Wynn. So there's a lot of names and a lot of players. Jason Peters, he's 41 years old, but he came back and played last year. You know, there are some players that the 49ers could bring in, be stopgap, short-term, veteran free agents, but I think they want to see what they got right now. So I'd be shocked if something big happens in the next few days.
And I hope I'm wrong about this, but maybe they know something more about Brock Purdy's elbow than we do, right? Then they're leading on and they're like, we need to clear up this space because we might need to bring in, you know, a veteran quarterback. You mentioned Tom Brady. Not
Tom
saying it's a Tom
Brady, the
Brady
dream's
thing.
not dead. You heard it here. Winky Wednesday.
Wink saying they're bringing in Brady. Lock it in. No, it just seems like that could be another area where they're like, okay, like you said, they're giving themselves some room to be able to make some moves if they have to.
All right. Thanks, Wink, for jumping on with us on another very successful Winky Wednesday.
Yeah, my pleasure, guys. Go Dubs.
Shout out to all of the listeners out there, all of our everydayers. And if you're new, make sure you're subscribed up and hang out with us every day here on Locked On 49ers.
See you.